Good day to everybody out there. This is See Thy Wealth, Water Your Health, Drink a Glass of Water. And I want to touch on this Abercrombie and Fitch CEO, Mike Jeffries, and his two co-defendants, I believe, Michael Smith and the other guy's name I can't remember, but it'll be in this article. These guys were all arrested a month after Diddy got arrested last year in 2024. So I think Diddy got arrested in September of 24. These guys got arrested in October of 24. Diddy has been convicted of sex trafficking. He wasn't able to get bail. And these guys had the same exact charges. In fact, their charges were international. They were able to get bail, and neither one of them has went to trial yet. In fact, one of them, the ANA or ANF Abercrombie and Fitch CEO, has actually gotten off. So I want to, and also he didn't have to pay for any of his legal fees. Very interesting. And I want you guys to look at this article about how these guys were able to weasel their way out of the system. At least he was anyway. This is Mike Jeffries. Abercrombie and Fitch must pay ex-CEOs criminal sex trafficking defense. Abercrombie and Fitch must pay for the legal fees of former CEO Mike Jeffries as he defends criminal charges of sex trafficking, a U.S. court has ruled. The fashion brand, which has previously said it was appalled and disgusted by Mr. Jeffries' alleged conduct, has signed an agreement in 2014 when the ex-CEO resigned, covering him for the cost of any criminal proceedings which arose from his position. The company had argued in court that the charges, which alleged Mr. Jeffries ran an international prostitution and sex trafficking business, related to his personal life and not his work. But a judge found that the horrific charges filed last year were tied to his corporate role. The court's ruling could have significant financial and legal ramifications for Abercrombie and Fitch, a billion-dollar public company with more than 750 stores worldwide, including the Hollister brand. Legal experts told the BBC the bill for the company is likely to run into millions of dollars. So not only does he get out of paying his legal fees because the company gets to pay for it, he also was able to dodge going to trial. But listen, the decision also raises questions about why the company made the far-reaching indemnity agreement when Mr. Jeffrey stepped down more than a decade ago. The BBC has previously asked ANF about the circumstances surrounding this agreement and if it had been aware of any allegations against Mr. Jeffries at the time, but it declined to comment. That pretty much says that, of course, they knew about it, and they also agreed that they were going to cover his fees. Mr. Jeffries, who ran the retailer for 22 years, is currently on bail after pleading not guilty to the charges along with his British life partner, Matthew Smith, and I said Mike Smith, and their middleman in the alleged trafficking operation, James Jacobson. The arrests followed a BBC investigation in 2023 that revealed Mr. Jeffries and his partner were at the center of a sophisticated operation scouting young men for sex in the U.S. and abroad. Ruling that Mr. Jeffries' indemnification agreement does cover the criminal charges against him, Judge Paul Fioravanti said, in my view, Jeffries' conduct, as alleged in this indictment, as horrific as it is, has a causal connection to his official capacity and status as CEO of Abercrombie. The criminal legal costs come in addition to fees in Mr. Jeffrey's civil cases, which ANF was ordered to pay last year on similar grounds. So not only did they have to pay his criminal fees, they also had to pay his civil fees. Along with Mr. Jeffries, ANF is defending multiple civil lawsuits from alleged victims, accusing the brand of having facilitated and funding his criminal enterprise. Jeffries' legal fees will be millions of dollars when it is all said and done, that he will not have to pay because, of course, ANF has to pay it all, said Niyama Ramani, a former federal prosecutor and president of West Coast Trial Lawyers. A former federal prosecutor and partner at Shahada and Geddes, Elizabeth Geddes, added, you'll have high-paid lawyers charging by the hour. especially if this leads to both a civil and criminal trial, which can be expensive and time consuming. Companies can indemnify executives even for criminal charges, she said, though this would typically be in cases of white collar crimes such as fraud and not sex trafficking. Mr. Rahmani said the Abercrombie and Fitch agreement was unique in its coverage of criminal conduct. Generally, criminal conduct is not something that you can insure for because it falls outside the scope of any company's business, he said. The criminal charges against Mr. Jeffries date from 2008 to 2015. He stepped down as chief executive of A&F in December 2014 after 2 decades in charge, a year after allegedly he, you know, was found to be doing these criminal activities. They said from 2008 to 2013. U.S. prosecutors allege he had used his wealth, power, and status as CEO to traffic men for his own pleasure and for the pleasure of his partner, Mr. Smith. A&F is not a defendant in the criminal case, but the latest ruling means it will now have to reimburse Mr. Jeffries for legal fees dating back to 2023, as well as advance him funds for his ongoing defense. Man, he weaseled him out of some money and out of the case. On top of the legal fees of its former CEO, the company may also face further costs in civil cases it is defending if a court orders compensation to be paid out of both parties agree to be paid out or both parties agree a settlement. Despite the severity of the allegations, the company has been reporting record sales amounting to 4.95 billion in the past year. It doesn't appear as though A&F are at a detriment financially due to the lawsuit surrounding Mike Jeffries, said Heather Cucolo, a New York law professor. She said it was interesting that the company appeared to have been able to spin or stifle some of the information that's out there because they really haven't covered this on the news. I mean, if this case was just as big as Diddy's, I'm not saying it would have had a major impact on the stock prices, but I don't think people would be supporting Abercrombie and Fitch as much as they would be because of how they were trafficking minors internationally, domestically. I mean, these guys were really more serious than the Diddy shit. At least Diddy, I don't want to say at least, Diddy's situation was his girlfriend and a couple escorts that he was hiring to screw his girlfriend. This was individuals that was actually having sex with these children, minors. Listen, it was a ring, and it goes into it in more in another article that I'm getting ready to pull up right now. All right. I mean, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Also, if you could like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Okay, so now we have it here. This is the co-defendant in the case, one of the co-defendants. FBI arrests Rice Lake man on sex trafficking charges, worked as alleged middleman for former Abercrombie and Fitch CEO. This is him right here. Jim Jacobson. A Rice Lake man was arrested Tuesday, October 22nd. This is last year, 2024, for his alleged role in a sex trafficking operation involving the former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch. James T. Jacobson, 71, was indicted by a federal grand jury along with former CEO 80-year-old Mike S. Jeffries and Jeffries' partner, Matthew C. Smith, 61. While living in New York, Jacobson allegedly worked as a middleman in an international prostitution and sex trafficking ring, recruiting and paying young male models to participate in sex parties around the world with Jeffries and Smith. Federal investigators said that at least 15 survivors, were recruited by means of deception, fraud, and coercion. Jacobson grew up in Rice Lake and graduated from Rice Lake High School before spending much of his adult life in New York. Known personally to many as Jim or Jamie, Jacobson moved back to Rice Lake about 5 years ago. Charging documents indicate that Jacobson was known in the sex trafficking operation as Jim Jake, Miss Cook, or Todd. The alleged crimes took place between 2008 and 2015. I'm sorry, I said 2013 earlier. It was 15. When Jeffries resigned as Abercrombie and Fitch CEO. According to the charging documents, Jacobson traveled throughout the U.S. and internationally to recruit and interview men for sex events. During tryouts of potential candidates, Jacobson typically required that candidates first engage in commercial sex acts with him. Following the tryout by Jacobson, Smith approved candidates prior to their selection for and transportation to a sex event. At the direction of Smith, Jacobson paid fees to individuals who successfully referred men who were subsequently selected. So basically, Basically, he was having sex with the men first, then he would transfer them to the husband of the ANF CEO, who then approved, I guess. At a press conference Tuesday, October 22, Brooklyn U.S. Attorney Breon Peace said, as alleged in the indictment, former CEO of Abercrombie Michael Jeffries, his partner Matthew Smith, and their recruiter James Jacobson used their money and influence to prey on vulnerable men for their own sexual gratification. Peace continued, to anyone who thinks they can exploit or coerce others by using the so-called casting couch system, this case should serve as a warning. Prepare to trade that couch for a bed in federal prison. According to the indictment, this systemic operation caused men to believe that attending the sex events could yield modeling opportunities with Abercrombie or would otherwise benefit their careers, or in the alternative, not complying with requests for certain acts during sex events could harm their careers. The court documents further stated itineraries for the sex events did not refer to commercial sex and instead resembled those often sent to models for photo shoots, thereby obscuring the nature of the sex events. The events allegedly took place in various locations, including the Hamptons on Long Island, New York City, and hotels in England, France, Italy, Morocco, and St. Bartholomew, whatever. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. Never been. Prior to the sex events, the men were allegedly subjected to shaving of their genital areas without advance notice, required to relinquish personal items, including clothing, wallets, and cell phones, and required to sign non-disclosure agreements. The men were allegedly pressured to consume alcohol, Viagra, and muscle relaxants during the sex events, and were not allowed to leave until Jeffries and Smith decided the event was over. Some men reportedly experienced painful physical reactions that lasted for several hours. Court documents further stated that some men were subjected to sexual acts like anal penetration and use of high-powered enemas without their consent or while they were unable to consent. At Tuesday's press conference, FBI Assistant Director in Charge James E. Dennehy stated, today's indictment highlights the alleged abhorrent behavior of Michael Jeffries, Matthew Smith, and James Jacobson. The defendants allegedly preyed on the hopes and dreams of their victims by exploiting, abusing, and silencing them to fulfill their own desires with insidious secret intentions. This case is yet another example of individuals using their wealth, power, or reputation to manipulate and control others for their personal gratification. Peace said, I want to thank the victims who have already come forward for sharing their stories. Prosecutions like this one are really impossible without the bravery of victims who are willing to report what happened to them to law enforcement. Peace expressed his thanks to the FBI Miami Field, West Palm Beach Residence Agency, the FBI Milwaukee Field Office, Eau Claire Resident Agency, the Barron County, Wisconsin Sheriff's Office, and the United States Attorney Office for the Southern District of Florida and the District of Minnesota for their assistance with the case. Lots of different jurisdictions involved in this case, and these guys are walking around on bail, scot-free, no consequences. Ridiculous. Meanwhile, Diddy couldn't even get out on bail, and let's finish this. Barron County Sheriff's deputies assisted the FBI in arresting Jacobson Tuesday morning, stated Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald. Jacobson was scheduled for an initial appearance in federal court in St. Paul, Minnesota on Tuesday afternoon. Jeffries and Smith were also scheduled for initial appearance on Tuesday after being arrested in West Palm Beach. So this has already happened. I mean, this article was back in 2023. But the fact of the matter is, it's crazy how a black man like Puff was able to get convicted of a charge like this. that only cons- consisted of his wife, I'm sorry, Cassie, the Jane Doe, Diddy, and then the sex guys who he was hiring to fuck them. Excuse my language. But these guys who were white can get away scot free with the same exact charges, excuse me, some of the same exact charges with more that was not only domestically done but internationally done. One of them was able to get out, Mike Jeffrey. All of them were able to get out on bail. Mike Jeffries was able to get out of the trial altogether because he had dementia. So he wasn't legally or able to stand, he wasn't fit for trial. And the other two have still yet to go to trial. And more than likely, they will probably get probation or large fine with no jail time. Isn't that crazy? What do you guys think about this? I mean, these are conversations that need to be had because the mainstream media really hasn't covered this. I mean, this is this. No, I can get it if this guy wasn't a well-known guy, and really he isn't. But Abercrombie and Fitch is a major company. As you can see, their revenues was almost 5 billion last year, and hasn't taken a hit. So being that he is on the same level as Diddy when it comes to finances, he's not getting the same treatment. He was able to get out on bail. He was able to avoid the criminal case altogether. And his co-defendants are less known, and they still have yet to stand trial and still have yet to be convicted of anything. Now, I'm one who is against of people going to jail, except for murder and pedophile. And this right here is a case of men taking advantage of other young men for their sexual gratification. It's very, very alarming. And there should be more of an uproar around this shit, period. Like I said, if he was a nobody and Abercrombie and Fitch was out of the picture, then I would understand why this has flown under the radar. But since this guy has been a well-known CEO for 22 years of Abercrombie and Fitch, who's to say that what he was doing wasn't going back further than 2008? It seems to be a double standard. And it seems to be, as we know, white individuals usually get less time in the justice system than we do. We understand that. And for it to blatantly continue to go on, this is out. The reason why it happens like this, in my opinion, is because it's systemic, number one. And number two, the same uproar that we had for Diddy, we're not giving the same energy to this guy. So, it is what it is at the end of the day. I figured I'd cover it. You know, at the end of, men do this all the time. Men do this all the time. Some women do it, women that are in powerful positions, but it's usually men who do this and get away with it. Other than, I mean, white men, I should say, and I just say white men, but this particular case is very interesting because Harvey Weinstein didn't get away with his shit. But this one right here, it's not a good look to me. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Also, if you could like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. This is See Thy Wealth, Water Your Health. Drink a glass of water.